What's up, guys? Cougs, what's up, Bubs for my son? Nice, yeah. That sounds about. We're in the same boat, I think, Cougs. We are in the same boat. Okay, let's look at. Obviously, we had a lot of baseball action yesterday. We'll look through some of the scores from yesterday. Who played well, who didn't play well, and then we'll get into some stuff coming up this weekend. Miami played really well last night. I was actually really enjoyed being in the Miami, kind of the Miami. There's like some really dedicated fans from Miami that have like a space after each game, and I try to jump in there whenever I can. Now we need Dusty and Po-Man to make peace. Yeah, I think they will. Right, like I didn't feel any like, and me and him got into it a little bit that first time. But again, it's like that's baseball, and that's being passionate about like what you love. And I think again, it's just like I wasn't like, it's just that happens, right? That happens. So, but I did say on that space, guys. I said, I mean, listen, if you're Miami right now, I mean, you're really their pitching staff is in an elite position with the numbers that they're putting up. And, you got to give kudos to the coaching staff on that, because they're really just, they're really just performing at such a high level. And one of the things I said in the space was like, you didn't see anybody. And again, I think Canes mentioned this, that what he was seeing in the fall and spring, like he thought, like, again, I mean, I'm sure, I don't even think Canes, I don't even think you said like, we're going to be elite pitching. I think you're like, yeah, we like, I think we're going to be better than people think on the pitching side. But right now, Miami, guys, is pitching at an incredibly elite level. I mean, just unbelievable what they're doing right now. And so, you got to credit Laz Gutierrez. You got to credit JD Arteaga, who again, I mean, he's definitely heavily involved with the pitching staff. So, like, those two guys are just killing it as far as the pitching development so far this year. But we're gonna get a few more minutes here, guys, and we're gonna get into. I'm actually just going. I want to see the updated stats for Miami's team, especially on the pitching side. But we're gonna get into some of the scores from last night, who played really well. It's after every game, Cougs. Damn, I missed the space again. Yeah, it's like if you just look at the Miami game, like 3 minutes after it's over, like 5 minutes after it's over, if you go to Kane's Twitter handle or X handle, like he's always in there. Yeah, they play again tonight too. Like, it's usually like if it's late at night, it's usually like if I'm watching TV with my wife, I'm gonna watch TV with my wife. But if she if she goes to sleep, I go. Oh, Javi Salas, yeah, dude, he's one of my really good friends. Played with him for like 3 or 4 seasons in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. He was a really good pitcher. Danny Boy Kane. Yeah, I mean, Javi is, and he's got his own little like podcast. He's got his own podcast now with a couple, actually, like 2 or 3 of my former teammates with the Brewers. So he's doing well. I gotta reach out to Javi and like try to get on his show and just talk shop. Yeah, so the Miami Hurricanes pitching staff went from a 105 whip to a 103 whip last night. Again, they're just, I mean, like just elite. I mean, they're almost at walking one every third inning, which like as a staff is just ridiculous. There's no other way to say it. So like Miami right now, like again, like the concerns I have for Miami is that your offense is struggling. Like again, like they're scoring. I said on the space last night. I think they're scoring like close to 9 runs per game, which is solid. Like you're in a solid spot there. Like if they can stay scoring close to that many runs per game with how their pitching staff is performing, they're a regional team, and they're even like a sleeper to be a host. 100%, 100% with the way their pitching is throwing the ball. Now, again, like that could all fall apart in like 3 weeks. And one thing I said on the space for the key for Miami is they open up ACC play, not this weekend, but next weekend they open up Wake, and then I think it's Florida State and then UNC, or it's UNC and then Florida State. Like they got like the front half of Miami's ACC schedule is really difficult, and the question is like, how do they perform in those first 3 series? And let's say they go like, they win 1 and lose 2 of those series, and they're at like let's just say they're at 4 and 5, which would be, I think if you go 4 and 5 in the first 3 series, like that's a huge win for Miami if you're 4 and 5, because after that, man, it gets like there's like 5 series that I think they should win. 5 series. And then if you get a couple sweeps in there, you're above 500, right? You don't get swept. If they do not get swept in these first 3 weekends and they win one of them, they're in a really good spot. Really good spot. Oh, man. All right. Let's look at some of these scores from last night. And we still have, wait, is this? Yeah, this is Wednesday. We actually still have, there's actually a decent amount of games. There's actually a decent amount of games happening today. Like A&M plays again tonight. A&M is really struggling, guys. I mean, that like alarm bells are ringing at A&M right now. Georgia Tech handled business as well. ACC is no joke. Yeah. And I think the offense at Georgia Tech right now is elite. Like, just no question. Like, the Georgia Tech offense is elite, and that's no surprise. Like, James Ramsey is James Ramsey. And that's just kind of what you've come to expect of the Georgia Tech offense. And, like, here's the thing. The thing that James does so well is, like, there have been a few years since since 2019, I think it was his first year. Like, he came in on that squad and really didn't even have a full fall and turned that into a really good offense, one of the best in the ACC. And it was, like, full of guys who hadn't won a thing, right? And then they end up hosting a regional. And since then, just every year, like a couple years when you're like, I don't know if the offense is going to be quite what it was. Like, you got Burris, but then it's like, who else you got? And those guys come in and they just bang every year. It's just, I think if you asked the guys I played with who we follow the program very closely, you would say, yeah, this year, like we know the offense is going to be good enough because it's, James has done that consistently, but like it's not going to be elite. Well, so far it's elite, right? So it's just like he's just proven every single year that, the guy knows how to coach, man. He knows how to develop hitters. And I think the bullpen is definitely improved. The question is just like, once we get into ACC play, how much improved is it, right? That's the question. That's going to determine Georgia Tech's season. All right, let's pull up some of these scores, guys. Let's pull up some of these scores. All right. Let's go to Tuesday, actually. All right, so in the top 25, get this ad out of the way for you guys. High Point beats. Let me turn this volume down a little bit. All right. Or Georgia beats High Point. Virginia beat William and Mary. Wake Forest wins. UNC Coastal. This was a fantastic game. I don't know if you guys followed this. I do think Coastal lost this game, and in the top of the 11th, Coastal looked like they were going to take the lead, and somehow, I'll find the play here so we can watch it. I know 11.7 definitely posted about it. That's like one thing I love about 11.7 is like that's like my clip. It's like the account I go to because I know all like the big plays are going to be on there. All right, let's see here. Let's find it. Yeah, and I mean, we'll talk about it as we keep going today. Tennessee hit 3 grand slams last night. Yeah, insane. Again, like Josh Elander, I think James Ramsey's in that same category as Josh. I do think, obviously I think Tennessee is getting like they're getting the best of the best players. And so when you have a guy who's just every single year turning out just stud offenses, like Georgia Tech right now is hitting a lot of home runs, leading the nation in doubles, and then Tennessee's doing what Tennessee's doing. I think they're leading the country in home runs. So, like those two coaches are just two of the best right now at developing hitters. And it's just again, it's not like it's not like a 2-year thing. A lot of these hitting coaches, what you have to understand is like they come in and they have like a recruiting class for 2 or 3 years that's really good. And people are like, oh, this guy's really good. And then like a new stock comes in and it's not the same results. Like with James Ramsey and Josh Elander, like they've gone through 2 or 3 recruiting classes at this point, and you're still getting the same results. Of course, it's taken me 10 years to find this. To find this clip from Coastal. All right, here it is. No, this is a walk-off. This is it. Let me mute it. All right, guys, let's watch this. I want to get your opinion on what should happen in this play. So pause. It's 2 outs, 2 strikes. Let's make sure it's 2 strikes, okay? So as a base runner, 2 outs, 2 strikes, you're not even waiting for contact. You're going on initiation of the swing. Right? So as soon as you see this hitter he start into his swing, and again, like you got to make sure it's not like a check swing, but like usually you can tell the guy's swinging. You're gone. You're not waiting for contact. So right fielder should cut this off. Oh, bobble, falls over, and still out by like 4 or 5 feet at home plate. Now, what do I think happened on this play? Me personally, I think there's a chance this base runner thinks it isn't running 100%, thinks that, the right fielder's going to cut it off. I'm not scoring. And so again, he may be running like 80%. And then all of a sudden he sees like coach is like still waving him, and it's like, oh crap. And he tries to pick it up and he's late. Cause again, like maybe just not a fast runner or bad turn at third. Definitely could be like, I think more than likely bad turn at second, like a really wide turn to get to third. But I do think like this is a ball with 2 outs, 2 strikes. You should score on as soon as this right fielder bobbles it And again, this guy doesn't look like a super like a slow individual. I don't know. He doesn't look like he doesn't have the body type of a slow guy. And this is the only replay we get. But again, yes, you're running in this situation in a tie game in the 11th and you're on the road. Like you're running 2 outs. You should know if it's going to be close at home, I'm getting sent. Like you can't wait around to get another hit with 2 outs. And again, with 2 strikes, you see this, you're off. You see this right here, you're going. So that's an extra step. But to your point, Buck, I mean, it looked like he got like a you know what? Like, okay, let's just think about where his secondary lead is. So if he's getting a lead, he's probably right here. His secondary should be about right here. So for this ball to already be in the outfield, and he's like 1 step away from his secondary, he's either getting a very short secondary and just not getting off the base well. And so he definitely is not going on the swing. He was waiting to see contact. And so now he's a step or a step and a half slower. And look at where he's at in the baseline too, guys. Just so you know. Like you don't see like this turn here. Like it's very important that you start going up here to get in a good angle. Now he does it at the very last second. But to me, when this guy bobbles it and then like falls over as well. I mean, it's a great relay accurate throws by UNC, but I just think like that guy has to score. Maybe not just needs to be balls to the wall until third base coach says otherwise. 100%. To your point, probably running with the first to third mindset and surprised when he's waved, so is breaking it down going into third. Yeah, I don't even think it was like he's not even at like the break it down stage, but he's rounding second and like all of a sudden in coast mode. Like he's in coast mode like at 85 instead of like keeping it revved at 100%. He's like coasting at 85, thinking, okay, like I'm safe, easy. And then it's a decent turn at third. I have to believe he kind of coasted it into like 85% after he got around second base. Looks like he had a brain fart and hesitated to see if first base was going to catch it. Yeah, but again, with 2 strikes, like with 2 outs, like you're not worried about where the ball's hit. And again, with 2 strikes, 2 outs, you're not even going on contact. You're going on the swing. So you're getting that extra like half step to a step because you're just looking for, again, you're not looking for this, but as soon as you see those hands moving forward, you're gone. Let's look at some of these other plays. So then this play right here is the walk-off for Carolina. Bases loaded, deep fly to center, does his job, great job. It's one of those as a hitter, you're like, just let it drop, man. Just let it drop. Game's over, just let it drop. I'm actually curious to see what pitch they decide to go with here. 3-1 count. Yeah, so I mean, you just have to throw a strike. Yeah, actually, really good job. Like, this is not a bad pitch by the pitcher. I mean, this is like, let's see where he would have caught it. I mean, it's middle. Yeah, it's maybe not as hot, not as up as it looked like. But just a great job by the hitter. Like, you're in a 3-1 count. Like, a lot of kids you see are kind of like, they don't want to be the guy to mess up here. So, like, they take this pitch and he's ready to go. Like, you give me a pitch, I'm driving it. Knows what he's got to do. Drives it deep to the outfield. Game over. Only replay I have is from 11.7. So I can't see the pitches before. I'd be curious as well, Buck, just because like, what were the pitch calls there? I mean, again, you're probably trying to throw fastballs bottom of the zone and like breaking stuff away to try to get like a kind of a hook ground ball for a double play. But that would be interesting to see. I mean, one of the other things, guys, is did you see this yesterday? George Mason set a new NCAA record of runs scored in an inning with 23. 23 runs scored in an inning. I don't like how does that even happen, How does that even happen? Ooh. But let's get back to the scores because there were a lot of upsets, especially in the SEC yesterday. SEC like starting to show a little bit of, like LSU barely survived. They were down big at one point to North Dakota State. So Alabama, Jacksonville State, Alabama taking care of business. Oklahoma State narrowly beats Winthrop. Tennessee, this game was close for a while, but then Tennessee just kind of poured it on. Like Buck said, or like 3 grand slams in the game. Florida State dominates North Florida. Clemson, serious, just solid, in control win over USC Upstate, 7-0. Florida gets 10 run ruled. I mean, it was 9 innings, but they get, they said run ruled because it's 10 runs, but UCF beats Florida 13-3. Miami loss, like making a little chink in the armor of University of Florida. North Dakota State threw that game away versus LSU. Errors killed them. Yeah, I watched some of the replay, and they definitely gave that game back 100%. This was a big one, guys. A&M goes down against UT San Antonio. A&M is now 6-5 on the year. And let's just go look at the schedule that they've played. And we'll also look at the stats because I mean this is something like we got to figure out what's going on here, right? Like UT San Antonio should be a win for A&M. All right, so let's look at this. All right, when did it all start going downhill? Cal Poly, they win. They're barely beating Cal Poly, right? They win 6-1. Which I guess is like fine, but again, you're expecting that offense to score more than 6. Then they barely win 4-3. Then they lose 2-3. Texas State comes in, beats them pretty handedly, 7-3. Then they lose to Arizona. They gave this game away in the 9th inning. I believe it was the 9th inning. Gave it away. Like they're just did not play good defense, didn't pitch well. Then shut out against Oklahoma State, right? And it's similar pattern here. Just not scoring runs, right? 4 runs, 2 runs, 3 runs, 2 runs, 0 runs. And then you beat Rice 14-4, and then you lose again to UTSA 4-7. Now they got Texas Southern tonight, and then New Mexico State coming up. But let's look at what the stats are showing us, because this is very out of the ordinary, right? This was the preseason number 1 team in the country. Did they lose Gavin Grahovac? Yes, but again, like this doesn't mean all of a sudden you're not scoring runs at all, right? So right now, as a team, they've scored 67 runs in 11 games. So they're kind of scoring like 6 runs a game, like 6 runs a game. That's bad. That's not just like okay. It's not really good. It's nowhere near elite. It's bad, especially again if you're the preseason number 1 team. Like you should be, and like you're projected to have one of, like, let's say a top 3 offense in the country. You should be right now with the teams they've played. You should be scoring something to the tune of like 10 plus, 11 plus runs. Like the best offenses in the country are now scoring like 12 runs a game. And where are the issues? Where do the issues lie? You know, they got 18 home runs on the year. That's solid. Only 11 doubles, 1 triple. Like they've played 11 games and they have 30 extra base hits. So not even 3 extra base hits a game. And you have offenses like Georgia Tech and Tennessee that are averaging like 6 extra base hits a game, right? So more than double these guys. So this is one of the reasons why they're struggling. They're only listen, look at these numbers, guys. They're batting 245 as a team. 245 as a team. 430 slugging, like they're still slugging pretty good, even though their batting average. And this is an indicator that, you know, maybe they just have a lot of bats struggling right now. But like this number goes up, slugging goes up, on base goes up. It's one thing if you're hitting like 300 and you're not slugging and you're not getting on base like that. Those are kind of harder issues to fix. But right now they're just not swinging the bats, which is surprising. And again, like this weekend, if you don't see a pretty good improvement, like I've told you guys, like 3 or 4 weeks in, you kind of have a general idea of what the offense is going to look like for the remaining part of the season. They're not stealing bases, right? So they need to drive the baseball. And again, probably there's a lot of pressure in that clubhouse right now because like pitching wise, they're doing all right, but I mean their WHIP is 1.3. This ain't a Miami staff. This ain't a Tennessee staff. This ain't an LSU staff. LSU's and Tennessee's numbers definitely went up last night. But still, this is like, you know, Tennessee was at a sub-1 WHIP before last night. LSU was at like a slightly over a 1 WHIP, I think. And Miami's at a 1.03 right now. So, like, you know, you don't have an elite pitching staff. The offense has been bad. Like, there's issues, and they're not really missing a lot of bats. Like 108 strikeouts to 94 innings pitched from the number 1 team in the country. Like, those are not numbers that represent a team that's, you know, should have one of the best pitching staffs in the country. Those are not the numbers you're seeing. They're walking, you know, let's call it just like right around 4 per 9, which is, or not 4 per 9, but like a little bit below 4, right underneath 4 per 9, which is fine. But they're getting, you know, 82 hits in 94 innings. So that WHIP is, I mean, you're giving up 1.3 base runners per inning. And they're basically like, again, they're not giving up a lot of extra bases. They've hit 20 guys. They've hit 20 guys as well. That's tough. So again, like there's a lot to be concerned about if you're an A&M fan right now, because they're just not playing well. That doesn't mean they can't right the ship. It's still early. Again, they haven't played a game of SEC play yet. But again, if you're struggling early against these teams, like it's going to get much harder in SEC play. So Dallas Baptist destroys Oklahoma. Oklahoma was undefeated going into this game. Dallas Baptist not only puts up 11 runs, but gives up none. Just dismantles Oklahoma. So again, we're seeing a theme here. Like this midweek was a really tough midweek for the SEC. Florida goes down. LSU barely escapes. A&M goes down. Oklahoma goes down. And these games really aren't even close. They're not like they're 1-run games. Like LSU ended up coming back, and again, like credit to LSU, right? I know North Dakota State made some errors and kind of let them back in the game, but like that's what good teams do. When the other team makes mistakes, you make them pay, right? And LSU, like this could have been a tough game, but they ended up coming back and and getting the dub. Santa Barbara just handedly defeats Southern Cal. Evansville and Vanderbilt was canceled. Same with Ole Miss and Southeastern Louisiana. Now let's go into the ACC and see, again, like you're looking at some of these teams, like can they right the ship? So Virginia dominates. Louisville wins a tight game. Wake Forest dominates. NC State dominates UNC Greensboro. I mean, if you're Elliott Avent in company at NC State, this is what you wanted to see. Just like coming out, bats putting up runs, pitching staff going lights out. NC State has not played well, right? They have really not played well, and looks like they may be, they're winning 4 in a row now. They may be headed right, kind of back into the right direction, but we have to wait and see how ACC play turns out for them before we can know for sure. Pitt easily wins against UNC Asheville. Boston College gets beaten by Longwood. Georgia Tech handily beats Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State actually came out to Georgia Tech took the lead early, then Kennesaw State tied it, then took the lead, and then Georgia Tech just kind of laid it on them. The bullpen right now for Georgia Tech is the real strength of the pitching staff. I think, again, like let's look at things you're a little bit worried about if you're a Georgia Tech fan. Obviously, I played there, so I'm heavily invested in the program. And again, like I just want for people who are fans of baseball and may even, fans of different teams, like these are things you can look at and have an idea of kind of what you should be worried about, everything like that. Dallas Baptist is better than Oklahoma, in my opinion. Yeah, I do. Dallas Baptist is a Power 4 program in baseball. Like, there's no doubt. Like, they just are. So, again, like, no surprise. I mean, the fact that they beat them 11-0, that was surprising. But the fact that they won, no one's surprised. Like, they're very good. And Oklahoma knows that. Oklahoma knows, like, this is going to be a tough game. Okay, so let's look at Georgia Tech by the numbers. 347 as a team. They have, look at this, 67 extra base hits in 13 games. Okay, now let's get my handy-dandy calculator out so I can give you guys the exact number. That's 5.2 extra base hits per game, right? So they're just slugging the crap out of it. They got a lot of guys. They're going to score runs from first. They're going to have a lot of guys in scoring position. What this offense is really doing, the reason this offense is terrifying if you're an opposing team right now, is they're walking at a fairly high rate. The strikeouts are getting a little bit higher than the walks, but you got 23 hit by pitches as well. So actually, this is 100% equalized. You have 90 combined walks plus hit by pitches to 90 strikeouts. So like you're totally fine there. 9 errors in 13 games. They're playing really good defense. 28 stolen bases in 31 attempts. Like this is way out of the norm for Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech typically is not a big base stealing threat. They're always going to drive the baseball, hit home runs, hit doubles, and they really don't. And this has been Danny Hall for a long. Like he just does not like making outs on the base paths. But this is kind of, again, this is a new development for Georgia Tech's offense, is that they're really, again, I mean, they're stealing more than two bases per game right now. So if again, and I've told you guys this, as an opposing pitching staff, when you got to control the run game, it's just a little bit. Maybe it's 15, maybe it's 20% of your focus is taken away from getting the hitter out and being like, all right, I got to make sure I'm keeping him close. Don't want him to run all over us. And so, again, it's like your hitters are going to get better pitches to hit, right? That's the biggest reason I'm a supporter of stealing bases again, you got to be smart about it, but stealing a lot of bases gets your hitters way better pitches to hit. Because, one, you got to challenge the hitters with fastballs. If teams are really good at stealing bases, you don't want to give them that extra tenth of a second or whatever it is on a breaking ball or a changeup when they're stealing. So you got to throw more fastballs. And because you're focused on holding runners, that command is you're going to make more mistakes with those fastballs. So everything working right now for Georgia Tech's offense across the board, just hitting bombs, hitting doubles, stealing bases, scoring runs. They have scored 125 runs in 13 games. So they're scoring just under 10 runs per game. which is actually kind of surprising when you look at some of these numbers, that it's under 10 runs per game. But they've outscored their opponents 125-54. So, all right. Now, the pitching staff. What are the concerns? Like, look at this. I mean, 3.9 ERA, just under 4. Pitching staff's doing is solid. 105. I keep thinking I'm getting called. 111 innings pitched, 105 hits. They are starting to get hit a little bit more. The hit number keeps kind of creeping up towards the innings pitched. You got 46 walks on the year. So, you combine these, it's, 161 and 111 innings. Your whip for Georgia Tech is going to be right around 1.5, which is, again, it's a little bit higher. Definitely, again, one of the things I think you're seeing is the whip is a little bit higher for Georgia Tech's pitching staff, generally speaking. And again, that is going to be skewed by, let's if you just look by the numbers in the walks. All right, so your 2 starting pitchers have 16 of these walks, which is one of the concerns. And then a couple pitchers have like all the hit by pitches. You have Porter Bursamo with 4, and then Riley Stanford, who's got 8 walks and 7 hit by pitch. So those numbers are skewed a little bit by, a few pitchers. But the thing that you notice is in 111 innings, 142 strikeouts. So that swing and miss ability is going to eliminate, it's going to make it easier for you to fight and get out at jams when you got a lot of guys who can make guys swing and miss, right? So the more base runners you allow, the higher your whip. Generally, like if your strikeout per 9 is high, those are going to equalize a little bit. And really, I think the question mark for Georgia Tech right now is, do these two, Tate McKee's pitched great. He's given up 12 hits, 6 walks, 19 strikeouts. So, I mean, he's really doing a great job. Now, here's the question. Brady Jones has pitched a lot better in the 2 starts after opening night. Opening night, I think he got 1 out and walked like 4 guys. So if you take some of a lot of these runs and everything were scored. I don't know what that music was in that first outing, but again, like I will say, watching his starts, he really sprays. Like he is not a command guy. He's got mid-90s fastball, really good slider. But if the opposing team has discipline, like he could be out in the second inning. Like that's the kind of pitcher. If he's able to get chases out of the zone, he'll be in a while. But so this is something you're worried about. Riley Stanford, to me, is in for a massive regression just looking at the numbers. Like you look at his ERA and you're like, oh, like he's pitching fine. In 12 innings, he's given up 14 hits, 8 walks, and 7 hit by pitch. So that's 15 free passes plus 14. That's 29 base runners in 12 innings. That's like over a 2. I mean, that's literally like almost a 2.5 whip. So 2.5 whip is not sustainable for a starting pitcher. He's also got a 311 opponent batting average. Like the one thing you can say about Brady Jones is like he's not a command guy, but no one's hitting him. He's hitting 147 opponent batting average. And Tate McKee, again, he's at a 226. You could see Mason Patel get thrust into the Sunday spot, or what you're going to do, I think what you'll see typically is Mason Patel is going to be the piggyback guy off of Brady Jones or Riley Stanford. So if one of these guys has, he's out in the second inning, Mason Patel's coming in for 3 or 4 innings. Now they could switch that. But again, like what you see happen in college baseball a lot now is that a lot of teams, when they make swaps and like from a guy from a bullpen position to a rotation position, like the guy just struggles. Like they're not able to make that adjustment. You saw that happen with Tate McKee last year. He was very good out of the bullpen, got thrust into the Friday night role as a freshman, which again, most guys are going to struggle anyway, but he was much worse last year starting than he was out of the bullpen. And this year, being in the role from the start, he's done much better right so far. But I do think right now, Riley Stanford is that one guy that you're looking at and you're thinking there's just no way there's no way his numbers can keep holding up like this. ERA, everything like that. Because by every other metric besides ERA, like he like he's gonna be a loss, is what I'm saying. Uh, you do like these. He's got 14 strikeouts in 12 innings, but again, when you're giving up 2.5 base runners per inning, and opponents are hitting 311 off you, it's just a matter of time before the CRA is in the tens. Like it's just a matter of time. Like one team is going to put up 7 runs in the first or second inning, and it's over. So I do think like that is the question for Georgia Tech right now is, do you keep Riley Stanford as the starter on Sunday and then just like you have Mason Patel ready as soon as trouble gets brewing? Or do you move Mason Patel into the Sunday role, which would effectively, again, that negates him from impacting the midweek games, which he has come into a few of the midweeks and pitched really well. But again, look at the numbers for Patel. I mean, 12 innings, 12 and a third innings, 5 hits, 2 walks. Like he's got like a 0.5 whip almost, and 15 strikeouts to go with it. So he's not giving up base runners. He's striking out a lot per 9, only 1 extra base hit given up, 119 opponent batting average. Like he's balling. He's balling. This is the best he's pitched since I've seen him at Georgia Tech, and even when he was at Georgia State. I remember seeing him when he was a freshman and thinking, man, he's got some potential because his changeup was really good. But then again, like everyone else, as a whole, this pitching staff's doing really well. And again, like what's the key for Georgia Tech? When your offense is elite, the pitching staff does not have to try to do too much. It doesn't have to be elite as long as if this. Again, like I told you, if Miami, we talked about Miami's postseason chances and what those look like for Georgia Tech. I think with what their offense is doing right now, if the pitching staff can stay middle of the road in the ACC, Georgia Tech's got a very good chance of being a host. Again, that doesn't mean that's going to happen. It's just like when your offense is elite, you don't. So like again, let's look at the schedule and determine how many of these weekend series in the ACC are wins. So Virginia Tech, it's in Blacksburg, but Georgia Tech historically in Blacksburg has played very well. This should be a series win for Georgia Tech. Okay. Number 2, this should be a series win for Georgia Tech. Notre Dame, this should be a series win for Georgia Tech. So 3 series to open ACC play. Again, like Miami, it's the complete opposite, right? Miami's got to face Wake, Florida State, UNC. If they come out of there 4-5, you're like ecstatic. I think Georgia Tech has to come out of these 3 series probably 6-3 minimum. 6-3 minimum to feel good about the rest of the schedule. Okay? Because these 3 teams, certainly like Virginia Tech is the toughest matchup on the road of the first 3 series. Like Pitt and Notre Dame, Georgia Tech not only should win them, but it, like in all seriousness, should probably sweep, right? So like this first 3 weekend series for Georgia Tech and the ACC are going to be pivotal to what happens afterward. Then they play Clemson at home, which you get Clemson at home. I think Notre Dame versus Georgia Tech is pretty even. Well, you know what? Let's go look at Notre Dame real quick and just see what they're doing, right? Let's look at what the Fighting Irish are doing on the baseball field as far as numbers and everything like that. Again, numbers don't mean anything or don't mean everything. So again, we're just trying to look for indicators that could show what a team's strengths are and stuff like that. So let me swap this, replace this with Notre Dame's numbers real quick. Okay, so if I'm looking at Notre Dame right away, 269 offense, 269 as a team, 13 doubles to 9 home runs. They got 22 extra base hits in 9 games. So they're basically averaging like two and a half the extra base hits that Georgia Tech is. 60 walks to 82 strikeouts. Like they're fine there. 15 of 16 stolen bases. So they're not stealing as many. Just Georgia Tech all around is a much better offense, right? Much better offense. But let's look at the pitching staff. 3.53 ERA. 79 innings pitched. You got 61 hits given up. 29 walks. And 16 hit by pitch. So all in all, like whip, you got you're going to be 90 plus 16, 106 base runners allowed in 79 innings. Their whip's going to be a little bit lower than Georgia Tech. Um, they're not striking out nearly as many guys as Georgia Tech. Um, and if you look at their starting pitchers, Jackson Denny's has done well. I mean, this guy is going to be, again, 15 innings pitched, 8 hits, 3 walks, 19 strikeouts. Like, that's very good. Jack Raydell has 2 starts, 9 strikeouts and 9 innings, 4 hits, 2 walks. And then Dylan Heine has a couple starts. He hasn't pitched very well. Rory Fox has 2 starts, 7 2/3, 3 hits, 1 walk, 12 strikeouts. But we have to look at, let's look at the schedule, right? Because again, numbers mean something, but you have to look at what the schedule's been. All right, North Florida, Iowa, solid win over Iowa, 2-1. UMBC, Stetson, Belmont, Eastern Michigan got postponed. So they really, they played kind of just okay competition, nothing special. So again, I do think Georgia Tech will be favored in that series. Like, pretty confident about that. Granted, Notre Dame hasn't played much competition yet. Yeah. Georgia Tech versus Clemson at home. That's going to be, again, that, like, according to how these next 3 weeks go, who knows? Georgia Tech could find themselves in the top 25, but certainly I think Clemson will probably be the favorite in that series, even though it's at home. Then you have Georgia Tech at Stanford. I think this is a pretty evenly matched. Again, we'll know a lot more about Stanford by the time this series comes around. It is in California, so like gonna be late. And then you got Georgia Tech versus Cal. That's a series win for Georgia Tech. Like, that is going to be a projected series win. And just to be quite honest, like, let's look at Stanford's. Let's look at how Stanford's been doing recently. Rintaro Sasaki is hitting 360, but he has not hit a home run yet. I think that's maybe the biggest surprise of the entire year. So, yeah, I think they do. They do have the. We'll look at the roster in a second, Buck. You're 100% right. Like, that is, like, Burris is kind of, again, like, he's hitting well, but he has been very heavily pitched around. I think there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. They do have, I think, Kent Schmidt hitting behind him right now, who's crushing it, right? So he is going to start getting more pitches. And I think you have seen him getting more pitches recently, but he's just one of those guys, like, no matter how good the guy behind him is, like, he's not Drew Burris. So, like, he's still just going to get pitched around. Looking at the numbers, and I don't want to go like too far into it, but I do think like this is going to be a pretty evenly matched team, Georgia Tech and Stanford, pretty evenly matched. I think Georgia Tech has the edge offensively, and again, like, this is weeks away. Like, this is a month away, but Stanford and Georgia Tech's pitching staff are very similar. Hi, Kyle. Is Sasaki MLB material? I don't know yet. I mean, I remember I've seen his swing. I think his swing is really good. We got to see how he continues to perform, especially once ACC play starts. A lot of guys look good early as freshmen pre-conference. The ACC and the SEC conference play is where the boys turn into men. So far he's doing fine. I do think, like, he's got 3 doubles and no other extra base hits, which is a little bit surprising because I know he was hitting bombs in the fall and the early spring. And I think a lot of people had him pegged to, hit like 340, 350 with 15 plus home runs. So right now he's not doing that. And you got, like, we're like almost a fifth of the way into, or basically a fifth of the way into the season. He's got no home runs. So We'll just have to keep watching. I do think like his bat is he's got a very good swing. So I think the bat profiles again, like if he's going to be a first baseman, like you're going to have to hit bombs, you're going to have to bang. But we'll see. Georgia Tech versus Cal. Georgia Tech's going to be favored here, especially at home. Coming from the West Coast to the East Coast, that's a tough trip. I remember traveling from AAA from like Vegas or Reno or El Paso to like New Orleans or Nashville. That's a rough trip, right? It's way easier going west. You feel like you get 20 hours of sleep, and you wake up at like 3 a.m. You're like, oh my gosh, I got like 4 hours of sleep still before I have to wake up. It's crazy. Like going to spring training every spring in Arizona. Those first week, you wake up at like 3 a.m. You're like, oh my gosh, I got 3 or 4 hours. I got 3 hours left before I need to leave for spring training. And when boys don't turn into men, it's so hard to say goodbye. Boys to men. This will be a great series. I can't wait for this, just for Canes and all the Miami people. But this will be a very good series because I think these two teams match up very well. It's just a question of is the Miami pitching going to stop the Georgia Tech hitters? Because again, like the Georgia Tech offense is elite. Miami's pitching staff right now is elite. So this should be a good matchup. And it's in Coral Gables, so maybe you give the nod to Miami. I don't know. Or at least a favor to Miami. And then you got Virginia at home. So Georgia Tech's schedule is actually in the ACC is actually very favorable. They do not play UNC or Florida State. Right? And then you got Louisville at home, and then you go to Duke at the end of the season. So to me, Georgia Tech has a very good schedule to be a potential host out of the ACC. Again, they do not have to face UNC. They do not have to face Florida State. They don't face Wake Forest. So this, again, like Miami, or not Miami, Georgia Tech's just, again, this is the crazy thing, and I told you guys this a while ago about having so many teams in these conferences now, is that you're going to have teams that just have like way easier schedules. And looking at Georgia Tech's schedule, like right now, that means they are missing, who I think, again, UNC is number 4. They're currently the highest ranked ACC team. I do think Florida State ends up being the best team in the ACC. But Georgia Tech will not play either North Carolina or Florida State this year. Then they do play Virginia, who's number 9 right now and was preseason number 2. They do play Clemson. They don't play Wake Forest, who's currently number 15. And that's it right now. I do think Georgia Tech, like, again, doesn't mean we still have to figure out who they are as a team once ACC play starts, but just like their schedule is very favorable, from what the information we know right now, which, things can change really fast. But from what we know right now, man, they got a great shot of potentially hosting this year if they keep playing well and the pitching staff keeps pitching the way they've pitched. Let's look at some of the games coming up this week. Right now, so we do have quite a bit of Wednesday games. We do have Arkansas UL Monroe, which is a suspended game that is being replayed or kind of being continued. Georgia State, Clemson Presbyterian, Florida State Bethune-Cookman, Arkansas UL Monroe after or before the continued game, Ole Miss Murray State, Mississippi again, Southern Miss again, Oklahoma State Winthrop again, Troy Alabama. This is going to be a great game. This will be very fun at Alabama. This is going to be an exciting one to watch. Florida Atlantic at Florida. Tennessee Xavier, Auburn at UAB, Texas Southern at A&M. We'll see if A&M can get it figured out. North Dakota State plays LSU again, and then College of Charleston. Wes, how does Hawaii play their games? Do they have to travel overseas? Yeah, I mean, dude, they gotta. I mean, they gotta travel a lot. They have to fly a long time, uh, all over the place. I mean, I mean, they pretty much play only West Coast teams. But we could look at their schedule, but I think they try to stay they try to stay as close as possible. But yeah, it's tough travel there. There actually used to be a AAA team in Hawaii, and I mean, imagine that travel. Uh, I mean, that would be a nightmare scenario because those flights are all long, even just going to California. But anyway, guys, that's what we're gonna end it there for today. We will be back tomorrow to discuss, kind of go over some of the weekend. Obviously, any recruiting questions, but we'll go over some of the weekend matchups that are coming up. Thanks for tuning in.